call to order the meeting of the June 26th Travelers Rest Planning Commission. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. We will start with our roll call, and we'll start here down on my right.
Melissa Helbert Pogoloff.
Andrew Walker.
Michelle Garrison.
Rebecca Cooper.
Diane Maxwell.
Matt Gilstrap.
Thank you. And then our next item is the approval of minutes from our May 22nd meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by the right hand. Opposed, like side. Thank you. And at this time, we are going to open for our public hearing.
And Chair, I was going to ask if we could, for the public hearing presentation, or if anybody would like to speak about it, that we would consider both at the same time. But then when we get to the end, we'll vote on them separately because they are identical to each other, and I don't want to speak twice, selfishly or whatever. So to open the presentation, I will go through 2504, and then I will talk about 2505 as I go through, and I am going to speak from my recommendations, which should be here somewhere. Yes, it is, right here. So the requests are both for a zoning map amendment. The locations are 102 Forest Drive. The other one is 101 Hilltop Drive. Tax map numbers are included on the agenda item. The request is a rezone from the current R 7.5, which is residential, allows 7,500 square foot lots, to RD, which is residential duplex. A background is, and I'm speaking about 102 Forest Drive right now, the 1.56 acre site is a portion of a subdivision property between State Park Road and Poinsett Street. Property is now adjacent to Highway 25. It wasn't when it was created in what, the 40s? 48, and the 25 wasn't there at the time. And this R 7.5 is the remainder of the subdivision, is what it's zoning. R 7.5 zoning allows 5.8 units per acre. So this property would allow up to 9 residential units. 0.33 acres of it is encumbered by an easement in favor of the Greenville Water Commission. Let me find the other one along Hilltop is 1.16 acres, would allow 5.8 units per acre or 6 residential units, and 0.32 acres is encumbered by an easement in favor of the Greenville Water Commission. Can we pull up the page that has the layout? It would be the best to look. That one, is there a way to turn it, or we can look at it this way? The Hilltop portion is the one that's looking north. So the Hilltop portion is the one to the west, has, as I said before, it allows 6 units, up to 6 units, but it's encumbered by the Greenville water line. You can see that easement running right there, basically northwest to southeast across both properties. And so the designation, the density would allow 6. The applicant is looking at duplexes, and there would be 4 units, 2 buildings, 4 units. On the eastern portion, there would be 3 buildings, 6 units. And again, that piece of property would allow up to 9 if it was continued to be R 7.5. Future land use shows this as a low-density residential, which allows for residential development alone. So no other, we would not come before you asking for anything but residential on this property. It's located inside the city limits, zoned R 7.5. Planning Commission, acting upon the recommendation of planning staff, shall make written recommendations to the City Council regarding the proposed zoning amendment. The site is surrounded to the north by R 7.5. To the south, both portions are adjacent to C2 Commercial. One's adjacent to Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know that location. The other one is adjacent to the property that is owned by the Ace Hardware. To the east of one, of course, is Highway 25. To the east of the other, it's R.75 subdivision. And to the west, on one is vacant commercial, and to the west on the other is a residential neighborhood, R 7.5. Hilltop Drive and Forest Drives are state-maintained roads providing access between State Park Road and Poplar Street. There is no floodplain located on the subject properties. Sites will be served by Metro Connects for sewer and Greenville Water. I will need to tell you both about the environmental. The piece of property that is Hilltop Drive, which is the one, again, to the west, has less than a third vegetative covered, and the project site is 490 feet from an active stream that crosses Highway 25. The easternmost site is adjacent to that stream. It crosses Highway 25. If you know the area where the Rite Aid used to be, there's a stream that is between Rite Aid and Highway 25, comes north, turns under Highway 25, and then continues north once it crosses under. So that property is adjacent to that stream. Again, it has no floodplain on it, but a buffer will be mandated upon it in the development process. 2/3 of the property is forested, and the site slopes moderately from southwest to the northeast. The way we measure or review criteria for an application of this manner, we want to make sure that it's consistent with the City of Travelers Rest 2018 Master Plan. We want to make sure that it's consistent with the City of Travelers Rest Future Land Use Map. And we want to make sure that it is consistent with the City of Travelers Rest zoning ordinance. In both cases, the proposed zoning amendment advances the core value of smart growth as outlined in the City of Travelers Rest. And so what it does is it supports smart growth by prioritizing infill development, utilizing existing infrastructure, and encouraging continued maintenance and reinvestment in established areas. So this is one of our core values that's listed in the master plan, and one of the ones that we are looking to deals with infill and redevelopment of properties that we are working on the areas within rather than expanding out. Secondly, it is consistency with the future land use map. And one would only have 6 units where 9 is allowed. One would only have 4 units where 6 units are allowed. So it would be a lesser density that would be allowed by the zoning designation, even though it would be a residential duplex. And we want to verify that it is consistent with the City of Travelers Rest zoning ordinance. A little background on this: when we were approached on this project, my immediate knee-jerk reaction was, this is not going to work. At the time, I thought we were going to be tied to either residential multifamily to be able to do this, or we were going to be tied to the townhome district. In neither case did we want to allocate this, because they allow additional things that we would not want to see happen on the site. That's when I became aware of our residential duplex zoning district, reading through, and it fit the quality of what we're looking to do here, or the applicant is looking to do it. This district is primarily intended, this is a direct quote from our zoning ordinance, the district is primarily intended for areas which represent transition between low-density single-family development and high-density multifamily development, and I add in there, or commercial development, and for sites which are located in predominantly low-density areas, but which are determined to be unsuitable for development under provisions of multifamily zoning classification. So the purpose of residential duplex, as from our zoning ordinance, says, hey, this is not a place we would do multifamily. but this is an alternative that we would allow. And so that is my report on this. I will state that a neighborhood meeting was held. The list of those who attended is listed, and among the discussions, the largest discussion we had in that area, no surprise, is traffic. Traffic is a concern in that area. The connection on Hilltop, between State Park Road and Poplar, where it ties into Tubbs Mountain, it has become a connection for people to get through without coming across State Park and then turning down Tubbs Mountain. And so one of the questions that was asked of me via phone the other day was about the possibility of traffic calming. My answer, as it was at the neighborhood meeting, and that day specifically, was DOT typically doesn't like to deal with traffic calming on their roads. This morning, I was looking up and discovered the manual for traffic calming guidelines with the SCDOT that speaks directly to these situations. And so one of the things that I believe the city is very interested in is numerous DOT streets that are located within residential areas of Travelers Rest, and the manner by which we can go through a process of having these installed in areas that would be applicable, how we could pursue grants and the funding. The city doesn't have the funding for this, but we do have a vehicle through the traffic calming guidelines. And so me and Philip Tate will begin to work with SCDOT to find out how we can have these installed, how we can go about finding the funding, and how we can work together with the community where these are appropriate. We believe that Hilltop would be one of those roads that would be very appropriate to slow the traffic down. I think this is one that would be appropriate to have multiple speed humps. It's a straight road, the whole length. It's downhill, and those probably accelerate, and nobody pays attention to speed limits. So we could change the speed limit to 15 miles an hour, and people would still go the same speed. So that is my presentation. I just wanted to add that fact to the end.
Thank you. And so,
Applicant.
okay. Mr. Spearman, you're up.
Howdy, how's everybody doing?
We're good.
All right. Just short and simple, Greg, who is the owner of the property, and myself, we both live in the city. Greg's building in the city limits, and he owns the Ace Hardware store in the city limits. I also own a business, Bespoke, right next to Tandem in the city limits. We want to add to the quality of the area. So as we're working with the builders and doing this project, I mean, basically what we want to do is kind of upgrade as much as possible the community. We've looked at single-family homes, which is what it's currently zoned, is putting them on there now. But you end up with small homes that would do the opposite of what we intended. With the upscale duplexes, we can do some really nice units that we can get a high price point for. Our kind of model of what we're looking for are the duplexes on Center Street where I live. Those sell for a pretty good amount of money. These are in a similar area that they're walking distance to the trail. They're in an area that's undergoing a renaissance. I know you know that they're working on the new food hall down the street. All that would be walkable from these properties. We feel like that, those can be some nice upscale townhomes. We don't intend to use any vinyl or anything like that. They're going to have hardwood floors, and we're really going to try to kind of push the limits of what we can get for a duplex, which, by the time they're finished a year from now, I don't know exactly what that'll be, but both of us were kind of pleasantly surprised at what that type of unit goes for. But we think that'll also be a good transition to the neighborhood. Behind there, we've talked to, I think, a lot of the neighbors. They like the idea of their property values going up, as long as you don't, the county doesn't raise their taxes. I'd probably say that, but other than that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, but we're early in this process, but we have consulted engineers, and we are talking to builders at this point, but our intention is quality, improving the area. And if this works, we look to do more infill projects like this. We like this type of project. You can wrap your hands around it. It's not a big development. I've been in development over 20 years. This is what I like to do as I'm getting older. You know, I don't want a big project. I want something nice and small where I can meet the people who are moving into these homes, meet the people in the community, and you know, take advantage of this great small town we live in. So that's it from me.
What kind of square footage are you anticipating?
So we're bouncing around between 14 and 2,000, somewhere in there. There's different plans that we're working with. There's advantage to some of the others. I think ideally my brain like 1,600 to 1,800, but
Like a 3.2 or?
oh yeah, well a 3, 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Garages, no garages?
Definitely garages. The question with garages is single or double. I think if we want to get the most we can for them, we need to do double. And with the way this is set up, it does allow for that pretty well. We do like the American Craftsman type architecture. It looks good with the hardy plank siding. It fits into the community. That's probably the architectural style that we're leaning toward. Like I said, we kind of like the units where I live on Center Street as a model. That's a little bit different situation as far as how those lots line up, and so it's not going to be exactly like that. But main bedroom downstairs, big bath, big great room, high ceilings. That's what we're looking for. Most likely the people buying these are not going to have kids. They're not going to need a lot of city services. They'll pay the same taxes as the people that have kids. Some of them may live here half the year and live at the beach the other half of the year, but they want to be in the Travelers Rest. That's kind of our ideal client is, I wouldn't say retiree, but affluent people who fall in love with Travelers Rest. Like myself, I'm from South Carolina. I lived here 30 years ago. I moved back, so I'm one of those people. But somebody like us, who just, has fallen back in love with Travelers Rest and loves the area. These aren't being built as rental units. You build those totally different. Though I think one thing that was mentioned, and I'll just be upfront of it about, is we're looking at covenants that would probably only allow long-term rentals. Short-term rentals, you tend to get a different type of buyer. They're not going to pay as much money for these as somebody who is actually their residence. So that's something that will more than likely go into the covenants. Honestly,
Is that a year for you?
a year, yeah, a year, 9 months possibly. I've seen that. That does about the same thing, but a year is pretty common. I don't see any downside to doing that, unless somebody convinces me otherwise. But definitely do not want to encourage Airbnbs in these units. We'd have to build them a lot cheaper. We'd make less money. I mean, economically, it doesn't make any sense.
You're building these to sell to investors that are going to.
No, we're building this to sell to end users, yeah. Investors are investors. They're looking for highest return on investments. They don't care if you cut corners.
Right.
Somebody who's buying a home, they want quality. Again, they may not live there all year round. I know where I live, very similar type of neighborhood. There's only 3 of us, less than half the families live there fully all year round, but everybody's a full-time resident. We're in that age of affluency, I guess, in this country where, you know, people can afford to have multiple residents, and what better to tie your money up into a place you live in? You know, I mean, you just build equity over the years. If you've got a place at the beach, or you got a, you know, some of my neighbors live at Hilton Head during the winter, and they live here during the summer. I mean, that's kind of, you know, that type of customer we may have. We may have, I mean, people with, we're certainly not restricting children, but it's not a good location for having children necessarily because of the main highway and things like that. So I think the people who buy in there are going to be, you know, people who are buying it that don't have children, that, you know, that won't they're coming for Travelers Rest. Travelers Rest is the attraction for them.
Mr.
Go
Go
ahead.
go ahead.
Your garage is a rear entry, or do you?
Not
that far?
It may be a mix. The ones we've looked at have been front entry, but ideally we would like rear entry. But for example, on the one track, there's no way to do that. There's no way to physically do that. On the other track, you know, that probably would end up with rear entry as long as the engineers kind of approve it. It makes for a little bit better presentation. But we've looked at some really nice plans that have front entry, so you can still achieve that classic Craftsman look with front entry garages. It's a little more difficult, but it'll probably be half and half, I guess.
Mr. Spearman, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
On one of these pamphlets, we got a handful of them up here. So it says concerns that were raised during the neighborhood meeting that it says that you might have been a part of. You mentioned it has two. One is short-term rentals. It's on the first one if you like.
Right.
Flip to, but there's two. Short-term rentals, you've already addressed that. Another one, the only other one is the possible concerns of traffic. We haven't touched base on that. I know Jay did a little bit. Just curious if you've done any traffic studies on your own, or if you pulled any on your own. That'd be the first
There's
question.
very little traffic. I've sat there in that middle of that, you know, and maybe it's certain times a day or something, but it's not local traffic.
Yeah.
I mean,
guess-
I've sat there out on those streets, you know, been out there on the property multiple times, and there's not a lot of cars coming through there. This is not going to bring a lot of traffic. I mean, you talk about, I mean, how many times do you go in and out of your driveway a day? You know, it's not a business, it's a residence, you know. But I think traffic is just a general concern. I mean, we could be building anything anywhere in Travelers Rest, or in Greenville County for that matter, and it's going to be a concern, and I did note it. I don't think it was a major concern with anybody, but because people did raise it. I think there was one question as to where the drive would go on the one property, and when everybody looked at it, they're like, oh, that's fine. That's on the main street. It's not even on the other street. So, like I said, I try to be accurate in that, just in case there's ever any questions, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I
Matt-
guess the only concern of
Matt,
traffic. What?
just a point of reference. Traffic impact studies are not required for development of this size.
Yeah.
DOT mandates traffic impact studies, and it's based off of a certain number of units, so it would not be mandated in this regard.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was one to kind of appease the community there, because I know there would be potential concern right where it intersects at State Park, but that's just the natural nature of the beast right there anyways, so. But that's nothing to do with this.
Yeah, and there were
Sounds good.
houses there before that were,
Yeah.
and I didn't see them, they were pretty bad, that I think Greg did a service to everybody by tearing those down, apparently. So, yeah, I mean, we are probably going to add a few extra cars in there, but it's also right by the outlet.
Yep.
So it's not driving through anybody's, you know, they're not going to be driving through anybody's neighborhood. I mean, they're going right out to the main road, so, you know, and, you know, as much as we love this area, you know, we'd love it always to stay the way it is. Nothing ever does. We just need to make sure whatever we put in, we're proud of. And, you know, because we both live here in the community, when we're doing, and we like development, but we want to see the area improve versus, you know, there's a lot of things about development that I don't like as a developer, but anything I've ever done, I've tried to do quality.
Yeah.
And that's our number one thing. I mean, that's the only way we're going to I mean, we're too small, we're not tract builders, we're too small to throw up something cheap and try to underprice somebody. We need to put in something better that they're not gonna do, because they're not gonna spend that kind of money, and that people will pay a little more for, because it's better quality. And that's where small builders, small developers, you know, can really thrive in this area. Plus, you know, a big developer, you know, this whole area, this, you know, if you look at Travelers Rest, it's kind of like a triangle. That whole infield area, you know, big developers aren't gonna touch that. I mean, but that's really where we need the most improvement. That's where you've got just a mix. You've got, you know, you got a couple rundown rental trailers next to a really nice home, you know, and things that just don't make any sense. And, you know, over the years, we'd like to pull out some of those trailers and put in some nice homes and things as we go.
Yeah, thank you for that. My second question is, it could definitely be a nice addition for sure and help the other property values around it. But if you can go back to your decision in detail, please, between not wanting to do single family but going straight to duplexes.
Yeah, so easy. If we put in single family in there, there's actually some new homes, and I don't know who the developer is, that put up there. You can get the same number of units in, maybe even more with single family, but you end up with the houses cramped up beside each other, probably no garages. You end up with smaller houses and just an inferior product, really. If you try to put multiple units on a small lot like that, whereas a duplex, you can put, you know, 2 or 3 units in, or 2 or 3 buildings in. They look nice, they look stately, they're well made, you know, and they don't look all jumbled together. You know, so just appearance-wise, you know, just aesthetically, I'm a photographer and artist. Much rather see that than a bunch of small, you know, houses side by side. You know, may make the same amount of money. We're just not real interested in doing that. So that's, you know, that was the other option. There's been some places that have done some nice things like that, but it's not easy. And it can get junky real quick. Whereas, you know, some nice duplexes with good covenants, you know, they'll hold their value and go up in value at time, and people will realize that when they're purchasing them. So.
Where there'll be, do you think, or to anticipate there would be a central management person for landscaping and grass cutting, and is that going to be within?
Yeah, so
I mean, is that something that would be part
Yeah.
of the package?
Yeah, absolutely. Because people who are buying these aren't going to want to. You're not going to buy into a duplex and want to go out and mow the grass in your,
On
you know,
your
your
half.
eighth of the yard or whatever it is. You know, yeah. So you'd have a landscaping company come in and maintain the yards. It's ideal for people who.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying people who want to get away. You know, they're you know, maybe at a point in their life where they don't want to do yard work anymore, and that was our main reason for buying in the duplexes. Is we wanted to be able to, if we want to go to the beach, we want to go to the beach. We pack up the dog and we get in the car, and there's nothing stopping us. You know, I don't have to worry about the house, and that's kind of the type of buyer we're thinking of, and that's yard maintenance. You know, covenants that. You know, that where the exteriors are taken care of by the association, so that, you know, because I've seen the worst thing that can happen on one of these long-term is everybody's responsible for their own roof. Well, guess what? You get like a different shade of shingles on a half of a building, you know, so you got to put in covenants like that. And they're simple and they're easy to maintain, and it's not anything that hasn't been done before. You know, we're not inventing this. These type of units tend to do well because for number one is they're a fairly big investment to begin with. They're not, if you make them cheap, they'll always be cheap. If you make them nice, people keep them nice, and that's kind of what we want to do.
So when you say upscale units, what does that mean to you?
Do you know how much we want to charge for them? Is I think probably a question.
That is
Yeah,
a next
we like to get about
yes.
500,000 per unit.
Okay.
That's I will say this: when we looked at this originally, Greg thought that was like nobody will pay that. But when I looked at the numbers and I pulled every sale for the past 2 years, and I broke it down in different categories. I looked at every which way. I mean, I think, 400 to 550 is probably the right number for these.
You may
And
need to adjust that in a year whenever you get ready to do that, but just because of housing prices.
yeah, we'll adjust to the market. I mean, the market's going to dictate. But I mean, I've been, with new construction, it's a little bit different because you got a cost basis in there where if I would have bought, the same thing, 10 years ago, I paid a lot less for it. So people tend to look at new construction a little bit differently when they go to buy. That's where the quality becomes really important. As long as they recognize the quality, price is not normally the main issue. But if you don't have the right floor plan, you don't have the right, you don't have hardwood floors in there, you don't have nice countertops, you're not going to get a good price on the unit. So we're going to be real careful what we put in there.
Oh, I just have two more, sorry. Take
Yeah.
over. The timeline that you have right now.
Well, that's a good question. We're in no hurry. We're currently talking with a couple builders, just preliminary discussions. But I didn't want to do anything until we got the zoning approved, clearly. I'm hoping maybe by the end of the year we could start construction. It really depends on Greg, because it's his property. He's financing it. So I'm a project manager consultant, but this is just one of many things I do. So it'll be up to him. But I would say the end of the year, start construction. We're going to spend quite a bit more time, and we've already spent a lot of time looking at plans. But we're going to spend a lot of time deciding on plans, talking with the builder, going back and forth. And also talking to maybe some people who bought similar properties, what they like, what they don't like about duplexes. Is there something we can do to make it better? I mean, aside from kind of the main bedroom downstairs, big bathrooms, that sort of thing. Maybe there's something, that would make it better. I mean, I like front porches. That seems to be a thing, but.
The other question I have is because there's creek, the bunched arrowhead
That would be determined on
further down.
LDR, when they go to
Okay.
Greenville County. So Greenville County under their purview, will be stream buffers. Under their purview would be bunched arrowhead. So if they required a study, then it would be mandated at that time. If it was located, then they would have to amend their plan around those habitat areas.
Questions down here?
Yes, you had previously stated there were houses that were on them, single-family dwellings, I guess, previously.
I understand they're pretty derelict.
There were two. They had
Okay.
not been maintained for how many years? A bunch. They had, yeah, they had been let go and not well-maintained for a good number of years, and probably came to the point of pretty close to condemnation when they were torn down, I would guess.
I was just curious if to me, it didn't look like it, but is there any type of land clearing or anything like that would be required in order for large grading? I see that there's going to be some stormwater management areas, small, I guess.
Any of that's going to go through Greenville County land disturbance as to
Okay.
the area that needs to be disturbed. The parts that would be reviewed by Travelers Rest would be the road and/or private road and/or private drive that is located in there. We would review that. And also we would review this for tree ordinance. And so if there are tree removals, then there will be mitigation fees paid per caliper inch. And then tree replacement has to occur. If they cannot replace what they have, then there is additional mitigation. The initial is $50 per caliper inch. There's an additional $75 per caliper inch if the trees cannot be replaced that are removed.
Hey, Jay, question. If this is approved and there is rezoned, is this the maximum amount of duplexes allowed on this property, or could they come back and try to put, 5 on one parcel?
This would be maxed out. Yeah, and that's based off of, RD does not set a standard density, but the density on these properties, and especially if you can see the white areas where, I mean, that takes up, between the 2 properties, 2/3 of an acre are within the Greenville water, and you cannot disturb, you cannot change the grades on top of the Greenville water. So that lines up that way. You can't build on top of the easement. And so this would be maxed out in our estimation.
Thank you, Mr. Spearman.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have,
One more question for Jay,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
So the covenants itself, does that, between the homeowners association that you'll establish, I guess?
What's that?
Covenants and deed restrictions are established at the outset of any homeowners association. So it's established and they're recorded with Greenville County. Quite typically, covenant deed restrictions are a boilerplate. They generally say the same things. In this case, so just so y'all know as a board, zoning can never say, hey, you can't rent your property. It's just illegal for that to happen. But in covenant and deed restrictions, you can set a number of rentals that are allowed or no rentals are allowed and things like that. Those can be handled in that kind of document within relevance. I mean, that gets into a legal matter, but those are all, anytime a HOA is set up, those things are set up. We do not review them as the city. We do not typically review them. That is just that they meet the standards and they are recorded with the county.
I mean, as a practical matter for what we're trying to accomplish, short-term rentals really go against that. I haven't started working on the covenants, but I mean, kind of my intention is to copy the covenants where I live as much as possible. That seems to work real well, just from personal experience. And why reinvent the wheel? Because I mean, if you've noticed what those duplexes on Center Street are selling for right now, if you'd have bought one of those 5 years ago, that would have been maybe one of the best real estate investments of your life. Part of what makes that work is the covenants. They're not overly restrictive, but what they do is they make sure that the property's maintained and that somebody buying it has a confidence that, they're not going to be dealing with house parties every weekend because somebody's Airbnb-ing. Not that happens a lot in Travelers Rest, but it does in people's minds before they buy. So that's really my main concern with that, so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
we have 2 signed up to speak. John Campbell.
1948 layout of this neighborhood. We live at 206 Forest
Thank you.
Drive.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, my name is John Campbell. Live at 206 Forest Drive. We lived there for almost 22 years. When I bought my house, everybody said to me, I work for the city. They said, why do you want to live in that neighborhood with that trashy trailer park down there? Well, the city had set up a plan to get rid of the trash and get rid of the multifamily units that were causing the problem. And they spent 25 years taking care of the other end of the street from this. I don't want to see that happen on this end. I don't want to see it. It's a nightmare. We had human trafficking. We had all kinds of problems down at that end of the street. And it's just now been fixed. We have five new houses down there. You can see that the problem, this is the end of the street, it was never there. That wasn't regulated. That's how that trailer park ended up there. It wasn't, and this is the other problem. This neighborhood was laid out in 48. It would never be approved now because this has open ditches, has no sidewalks. We would never approve anything like that. For years, I've tried to get the city to do what they did at Little Creek and West Road, but we don't qualify for that because that was done with federal grants, and for some reason, we don't qualify to have the same thing done in our neighborhood that they did over there. But that allowed for the type of development that they want to do. it's something, if we want to do that, the city needs to invest in that neighborhood first. Put in sewers, the other thing. The sewers are ceramic, and they were relined about 15 years ago, or lined, because they were collapsing. The houses in the neighborhood are on gray water, meaning that there's only toilets and showers hooked to the sewers. So when you put in 9 units and people flush the toilet, 7 times this year, we've already had the sewer overflow in our neighborhood. And we've had the water department out there and Metro Connects out there fixing those problems. I can't imagine upstream from me, up the sewer from us, what's going to happen if people start flushing the toilets. It's something that people don't think about until they think, well, we got infrastructure. The infrastructure is old and crumbling, and it hasn't been replaced in 50 years. I mean, it hasn't been upgraded. The upgrade was a Band-Aid. That was 15 years ago. We had what do you call it? It wasn't a tax, but extra fee that the city paid to reline the sewers to take care of those crumbling things. But we have Metro Connects now that's handling that, but if that gets too expensive, they're going to back out. Those are contracts, and they're never going to replace all that. It's going to cost a lot of money to fix that. So putting in multi-unit houses with lots of toilets and expensive stuff is just going to stress that whole system out. I disagree with your assessment on the traffic. I walk my dog in the neighborhood, and you have to dive into a ditch on a regular basis to get away from people that are going 50, 60 miles an hour. It doesn't take a huge amount of traffic. It takes one car to kill you. And we saw that over across from Cox Street. During the hurricane, our house was damaged, and we lived in the townhouses across there on Cox Street, those new townhouses. Really nice. The people living in there are doing what you're saying is not going to happen, and they've got those rented out as Airbnbs, lots of them. They're subletting them out. They're living in them, and they're renting them out, and the management company has no idea what they're doing. And I know because I lived for 6 months next to people doing that. You can't control that. You can't regulate it. They're not paying city taxes. They're not paying their business license fees.
Then you need to
They're doing it on
report
the
that to
sly.
the city so they can enforce, I mean, we do have we
I'm
do
not
have
trying
a
to blow the
short-term
whistle on
rental
people
fee.
here
Yeah.
tonight. I'm just telling you what's happening, and that's the reality that happens when you bring those things in. There isn't enough people in the city government to go out there and figure out, scan through the internet and see who's renting their upstairs out and stuff like that. But what happens is you got a lot more people going in and out, in and out, in and out, all through that complex up there. Just drive through that one and see how many tags are South Carolina tags. You'll see Montana, Colorado, Florida. Most of the people in there don't have a South Carolina tag on their car, and that's because they're not real residents here. That's just my personal experience from the last 6 months. I haven't lived over there, so in my experience with townhouses. Another big thing, this was laid out in 48, and I showed you this. US 25 wasn't there. It's well known that where Food Lion is was a Cherokee village, and across here where Walmart, across the road where Walmart is, was also Cherokee land. And I've talked with neighbors here, and they know that there are graves in that area right there on that property. So I called, when the sign was up last year, I called and asked if the realtor, if they were gonna do, when Danny sold his property, if they were gonna survey that land. I tried to call Clemson, I tried to figure out who to have do that, but I couldn't, nobody ever would call me back about it. And in the 50s, when the highway was put in, people didn't care about graves. They didn't care about graves when I worked for the city. When Batson was the mayor, he pulled a grave marker up where they built the high school and threw it and said, no one's buried here. There's a grave right in front of the high school. I was there when they did it. So I know that they didn't care about doing surveys and figuring out where that stuff is. In my basement, I have a coffee can full of arrowheads from that land, from all down in that creek in that area, that land. So I know that there's graves in there. There needs to be, if that's going to be developed bigger than the footprint that's already there, that was already used, that needs to be surveyed. And that goes down to that creek and whatever, because that's going to disturb stuff that should have already been done. But I don't know what the laws are on that. I don't know what who has the responsibility of that. But I know that if the footprint is expanded from the house that was already there, that's gonna, you're gonna find things you probably don't wanna find. Danny, that owned that thing, he was a hoarder. His family was hoarders. I know that was a real nightmare of a house that was there, and it was great to see that it was torn down, but we wanted to see another house put in there, not,
Well, you could have
not
6 in there.
not 6. Not 6. At least not 6 unless the city invests in the neighborhood and invests in putting in sidewalks. I'd love to see sidewalks down both sides of the street and a center strip down the middle where it looks like Main Street. That would be awesome. I know there's no money for that, but I know that would be the greatest thing for this neighborhood. It'd be beautiful on both of those, on McAllister and on Hilltop. And I walk that with my dog almost every night, walk around there, and at least 2 or 3 times have to dive for the ditch from speeding cars. And another reason, if you look at this used to be Forest Drive. It used to come down, and this was all Forest Drive, and it connected to Tubbs Mountain. Now it's Poplar, because when they put in 25, the end of Forest became Poplar, and that's a cutoff. So when I don't know which one of you said that when it's up near the outlet and it won't cause traffic, you can't get out the outlet during the day. You have to come down Forest or down McAllister to turn onto Tubbs Mountain, or to turn onto 25 to go up. You have to go south, to go north to go south, because no way you can get out of there. And the reason is, when KFC was redeveloped, it used to have its own exit on and off of 25. When it was torn down and rebuilt farther down on the property, they closed that exit off, and they made everybody have to come down Hilltop. Big mistake, I think, in the engineering of that. I don't know why that was done. The result is, I can't remember his name now, it used to be Dr. Pollard, the dentist's office, he had to build his own fence there, his own wall, to keep people from cutting through, just so they can get onto State Park. Now people are cutting through Ace just to be able to turn there. But I'll sit there and I'll say, why did I come up this way? You sit there for 10 minutes while somebody's got their left-hand blinker on, and then they finally put their right-hand blinker on, turn right, go down and make a U-turn on State Park and come back up.
John, we
Because
got to
there's no
wrap
way.
this up. We didn't put a time limit on this.
So-
Typically, it's 3 minutes, so.
All right, so
Thank you. And John Campbell?
That was him.
Oh, I'm sorry, Anton.
Anton.
I didn't look at the next line. Sorry. I know John. So we can keep it 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I'll be quick. Anton Abbott, I'm at 12 McAllister. I missed the community meeting, so it was good to talk to you on the phone the other day. Thank you. It would be fantastic if we could get speed bumps. That would be amazing. Just as a quick side note, I'm not super concerned about more traffic. If it's only that many homes, that's not a huge deal. It is a huge deal. Everybody constantly cutting through. There are a lot of kids there. When I hear the word duplex, I'm from Georgia. It doesn't exactly instill a lot of joy in me. But if it is like what's near the library, like I could see that working out. That does sound a lot better. With those numbers being that high, if 400K is true, that's more expensive than the houses there right now. So that's not a huge deal. I do wonder how long people are actually living in these places, or if it is kind of a halfway buy this and then move to like a bigger home. I don't know how long people have lived in those homes that you're in, if they've been there for 10 years or if they've been built that long. I have no idea. I would be curious about that if people are
A few of
staying
those
there.
have been turned.
They've been like
Those have
fairly
been there
quickly, or
7 years?
7, 8.
7, 8 years. A few of them have been turned once.
I don't think any more than a normal.
It's pretty standard. I think 2 or 3 of those have turned in that time frame and are on their second owner. So that's pretty typical.
I mean, that'd be my only concern if that was
Yeah,
a
and that's-
continual thing.
Right, yeah.
And then I guess my only other question is, would this have an effect, you might know this, Mr. Martin, would this have an effect on the other somewhat undeveloped areas of this neighborhood? So across from me is the old church and the parsonage. I know that's only a matter of time until that's sold and developed to something else. It'd be great if that was homes and not a series of small buildings put together. I don't know.
As far, and obviously with no application for those things, we can't respond until we get that.
Sure.
But the train of thought would be here, the only reason that there's any consideration from R 7.5 to RD is that it is adjacent to commercial pieces.
Kind of a
The church
transition.
would
Got it,
end up
okay.
being an
Residential.
island in the middle. And typically, we do not bring forth applications that would be an island zoning in the middle. So anything that developed there would fit within the R 7.5 zoning, and which would not allow duplexes, would not allow townhomes, and would not allow multifamily, and definitely wouldn't meet the future land use plans for commercial. So if that was ever brought forth,
Cool.
it would be kind of, it's landlocked
Okay.
in that area.
Cool, thank you. It's interesting about the plumbing too. I had not thought about that. That's all I had. Thank you.
All right.
So in the case of, we'll split them apart now, TR 2504, based on the findings, staff recommends approval of this request for zoning map amendment from R 7.5 to RD with conditions. The conditions, this is a normal condition that I apply pretty much every single time. The site is subject to all applicable requirements of the City of Travelers Rest zoning ordinance, as well as other applicable ordinances. Those other applicable ordinances, every time I say that, refer to Greenville Water, Metropolitan Sewer, REWA as a treatment for sewer, and Greenville County as land disturbance, among others. DOT encroachments would be the other one in this location as well.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to A, to consider this. So as a matter of process, we need a motion and a second, and then we can discuss further. I have some comments that I plan to make. So at this time, I would entertain a motion for TR 2504 as noted, based on Mr. Martin's recommendations. So,
Motion to approve with conditions.
motion, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. At this time, we would take discussion. So I'll start. I just have a couple of kind of a devil's advocate somewhat. What's interesting for me about this particular property, and I've been involved in community development for 30 years here, and for many, many years it was, why can't somebody do something with this property? If you look back in the property and the history of it, at one time, a part of it belonged to Greenville County Library. Somebody donated that property to the Greenville County Library in exchange for something else, and it was kind of a landlocked property. People have looked at it many times over the years, and it finally had a buyer. But the problem, people would say, why is that just sitting there? Why doesn't somebody do something with that? So when we look at it today, for me, if we look at what's being proposed versus what could be, I think there are benefits to this proposal. 6 houses versus 4 duplexes, 9 houses versus 6 duplexes. If you look at 2 cars per unit, that's 12 versus 8 versus 12, or 12 versus 18 on the larger one. So I see there's benefits to that. If we can move forward with DOT and do some traffic calming, I think that would be beneficial overall in any case.
I will state,
That's a cut, I mean, it's always been a cut, been here all my life. That's been a way to get from point A to point B.
I will state, for the record, this is something we are going to investigate regardless.
Yes.
The issues we have on Hilltop with cut-through traffic are significant, and this is an answer we will see if there's a resolution to. I can't make any promises that it'll go anywhere, but it is something we need to look into.
And, I think I love the idea of sidewalks. The property owners have to be willing to give up their property for sidewalks. And it's nice, it'd be great, it'd be beautiful, but realistically, is that feasible? And you can't just have, oh, well, Bollinger's would do it, but John won't do it. So it's kind of like negotiating the railroad rights to expand the Swamp Rabbit Trail. Every piece is different. So that, it's unfortunate, but, we would all love to live in, I'd love to have sidewalks on Tubbs Mountain Road, but I'm not giving up part of my yard for it. So, yeah. Yeah. So those are my comments. I think this proposal at that quality, what they're proposing is better than having 6 houses on one side and 9 houses on the other. You're going to have the same component of, if you're concerned about the sewer, I know that we're federally mandated to have a sewer replacement project ongoing. It's been that way my entire time as an adult since I've been back here. Different areas, there's a separate sewer budget for those kind of things. The city looks at different ones about every other year. There's a major sewer project.
Chair, we are out of the sewer business.
I know we are. Well, they're good, so we don't have to do that anymore. But
No,
yeah.
all those have been taken on by Metro Connects and removed, and so.
Do they have to follow kind of the same federal
They
guidelines?
they update every line. The biggest issues, like were stated, are I&I issues, and so you have the infiltration and everything. So what ends up happening is older lines, you take on water that isn't actually sewer water. Storm water ends up in there and everything else. Well, once it mixes in, it's all sewer water. And so it all has to be treated. And so when REWA's at the bottom and they're ready to treat a certain amount, but now they're receiving twice that amount because waters are added to it, is one of the issues. The other is all of these systems were set up so long ago that it has improved. And so the pipes have improved now. And so they take a look at those and they do, so when a developer takes this project forward, he will have to file a public main extension because more than one unit is going on there. That public main extension form goes to Metro. Metro will rule whether they have issues on that line and are willing to or able to receive the waters. They will also state if they have issues on that line that repairs that would have to be made for those sewer waters to be added to the line. And then that form is passed along to REWA and they have to approve that they have the capacity to treat that water. So there's a whole form and process that they take a look at, knowing what is coming into their system, and they keep up with what their system, the issues they have currently in their system.
Any other questions for Jay or comments? So at this time, we have a motion to approve TR 2504 from R75 to RD. All those in favor, please signify by the right hand. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. And
in the case of TR 2505, RZ, based on its findings, staff recommends approval of this request for zoning map amendment from R7.5 to RD with conditions. Those conditions are the same. The site is subject to all applicable requirements of the City of Travelers Rest zoning ordinance, as well as other applicable ordinances.
I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by the right hand. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Being there's no other business. Jay?
Under other business, I would like to introduce y'all to Success. She is the intern from the Shy Institute for this summer. And so this is her first shot in getting everything lined up to get our meeting to take place tonight, and it didn't go smooth before we got here, but it went smooth after we did because we got everything in order.
And we
So
went live.
there you go.
And we're live.
We were live and we made it and survived.
Okay.
So
All right.
wanted to introduce her.
Welcome, success. What year are you at Furman? Or what's your major? I'm sorry? Okay, sweet. All right.
So, and Success is from Liberia,
Oh,
so
wonderful.
western coast of Africa.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Let's go. Thank y'all. Stay hydrated.